From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day, this is Dateline Malacañang, and here are the news. On the top story, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. assured the Filipino people that the Department of Agriculture or DA has enough buffer stock of rice despite the massive agricultural damage left by Super Typhoon Egay in northern Luzon. In a short video message, President Marcos said that he met with the DA officials on Tuesday and discussed the effects of Egay on the country's rice production and the ways to ensure a sufficient supply of rice. President Marcos met with the DA officials a few days after Super Typhoon Egay hit some parts of northern Luzon, leaving approximately 1.94 billion pesos worth of agricultural damage. The chief executive, however, said that they are still looking thoroughly at some agricultural inputs as far as the effects of Egay is concerned to ensure that the price of rice in the market will not increase, with rice supply projected to reach 5.47 million metric tons or MMT in the third quarter of 2023 and demand expected to reach 3.79 MMT. Ending stock in the third quarter is projected at 1.69 MMT and after last 45 days at present consumption according to the DA. Aside from the effects of Super Typhoon Egay, President Marcos said that they also discussed during the meeting with the DA officials the department's preparations for the buffer stock with regard to the expected occurrence of the El Niño phenomenon. While talking about the possibility of importing rice, President Marcos clarified that it has to be studied carefully. The chief executive also emphasized that the DA assured him of enough supply of rice and corn seeds and high-value crops that will be distributed to affected farmers. Here is Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
We just finished a meeting in the Department of Agriculture. Pinag-usapan namin ang effects ng Egay sa ating rice production at kung anong dapat gawin para maging sapat ang ating supply. Mukha naman, sa ngayon, the supply is okay. Yun lamang ay yung mga inputs pa rin ng agricultural inputs ay tinitignan natin na mabuti para tiyakin na hindi naman masyadong tataas ang presyo ng bigas. Bukod pa doon ay pinag-usapan namin ang paghanda ng ating buffer stocks for the coming El Niño towards the end of this year hanggang first quarter of next year. So gagawa na kami ng schedule kung saan tayo kukuha ng production, kung saan tayo bibili dito sa local, kung kailangan mag-import, mag-import na naman tayo. Mabuti naman at sa usapan namin, nakita naman na ang pag-import natin ng bigas ay pababa naman ang pababa. Ngunit pagka may emergency na ganito, ay kailangan talaga natin tignan kung nangangailangan pa ng pag-import. Kaya yun ang aming pinag-aralan na mabuti. At tapos yung pinag-usapan din namin yung response ng DA sa mga agricultural crop damage nangyari sa Egay. At nakita naman namin, tinanong ko sa kanila kung meron tayong sapat na supply ng mga binhi ng iba't ibang tanim, ng palay, ng mais. Yung mais, baka hindi na pwedeng habulin yung season, pero yun ang malaking nasira sa mga lupa na nakatanim sa mais. So, high value crops din. Meron baka maging alternative yung livestock raising na muna kung hindi nakapag-ani yung magsasaka. Kaya ito yung mga scheme na ginagawa natin. Sapat naman ang mga supply natin sa binhi. Hindi tayo magkukulang, mabibigyan natin lahat ng mga nangangailangan.
Thank you, sir.
The Department of Agriculture or DA will distribute 111,873 bags of rice seeds, 14,426 bags of corn seeds, and 2,582 kilograms of assorted vegetable seeds to regions affected by EGAY as it's recommended to ramp up local production of rice and production support to ensure a sufficient supply of rice and other agricultural commodities. It also recommended to fast-track efforts for the distribution of readily available assistance to rice farmers, especially those in calamity-stricken areas, and ensure the availability of the Quick Response Fund for the immediate rehabilitation of affected areas to be augmented by credit assistance. Exploring the possibility of immediate procurement of available rice stocks at the lowest accessible price to cover the 15-day buffer stock subject to compliance with the Rice Tariffication Law or RTL and its implementing rules and regulations is one of the DA's recommendations. The DA also recommended to ensure the availability of affordable rice, especially to the less fortunate households, through the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program or the food stamp program, and to mobilize local government unit or LGU resources in responding to calamities.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine Department of Agriculture or DA said the supply and demand of rice in the Philippines remains reliable, despite the looming effects of many factors including the decision of Russia to withdraw from the Black Sea Grain Initiative, the decision of India to ban rice exports, and the El Nino phenomenon. Despite the positive report, DA Undersecretary Mercedita Sombilia said that the Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., who is also the concurrent DA Secretary, has expressed concerns about the possible effects of the three major global issues on the Philippine agriculture sector. Sombilia said that they have to discuss ways to mitigate the further effects of three global issues that are now unfolding, as she emphasized that the DA is prepared to increase rice production in the Philippines. Sombilia also emphasized that the price of rice in the market could be attributed to the effects of the increase in prices of fertilizer and fuel cost, which are still fluctuating primarily due to the Black Sea Grain Initiative. While there are unstable movements in the Black Sea Grain Initiative, Sombilia emphasized that it will cause a very minimal effect on the Philippine market, similar to the effect on the decision of India to ban rice exports. She emphasized, however, that a problem may emerge depending on how other exporting countries would respond to the global events, but which the DA is closely monitoring.
And I think, we are prepared. The production for up to the second quarter, we have something like 38 to 39 to 39 days of stocks, no? And then we'll continue, the DA has already, prepositioned ways by which we could really increase production. The biggest rice production will still come sometime, kung hindi end of September, sometime in October. So we will be beefing up our supply, and of course the usual supply that we will be also getting from imports. So I think, as of today, we are looking at, sound pa rin naman yung supply and demand natin, as of today. But again, as the President is very much worried, we really have to discuss ways by which we could really mitigate, further, effect of this events that are now unfolding.
Dateline Malacañang.
The administration of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. remains hopeful that it will fulfill his campaign promise of lowering the price of rice to 20 pesos despite the current rice productivity in the country, according to the Department of Agriculture or DA. DA Undersecretary Mercedita Sombilia told reporters in a press briefing in Malacañang that the 20 pesos per kilo of rice is still feasible once the country reaches its sufficient production of rice. Sombilia added that the price of rice in the market will go down, especially when the Philippines is no longer affected by price increases in fertilizer and fuel, the looming effects of the El Nino phenomenon, and the weather disturbances. She also underscored the importance of people's cooperation in achieving the administration's goal of lowering the prices of rice in the market. President Marcos is also the rather the concurrent Secretary of the DA.
But in the long run, pagka talagang gumanda ang ating productivity, and that is what DA is really aiming for, the government is aiming for. But posible yan na nabababa. Pero sa mga nangyayari ngayon, fertilizer cost, fuel cost, tapos itong mga El Nino, back-to-back typhoons natin, hindi natin makikita yan in the short run. But over the long run, if we are able to increase our productivity, I think it's achieved. We can achieve that. And of course, tulong-tulong talaga para pag-achieve niyan.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippine National Food Authority, or NFA, is now working closely with its regional field offices as part of the response of the Department of Agriculture, or DA, against the looming effects of the El Nino phenomenon, which is expected to persist until the first quarter of next year. In a press briefing in Malacañang, Agriculture Assistant Secretary for Operations Arnel de Mesa highlighted the importance of a whole-of-government approach against the El Nino phenomenon.
For the El Nino, kung titingnan natin historically, malaki yung damage sa rice and corn nung strong and severe. Pero yung projection ng Pag-asa, there will be about 50% strong. So yun ang pinaghahandaan ng Department of Agriculture when it comes to El Nino. And all the necessary interventions ay again na-coordinate natin with our regional field offices so as to ensure na responsive tayo dito sa magiging epekto ng El Nino. Nag-declare na ang Pag-asa, and based of them, it will persist until early parts of 2024.
De Mesa said the whole-of-government approach is the directive of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., who is also the concurrent DA Secretary on El Nino preparations. The agriculture official noted that the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration, or Pag-asa, has already declared that the drought season will last until the early part of 2024.
Dateline Malacañang.
Day after getting renewed backing from the European Union, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. received expressions of support from a ranking Japanese lawmaker for the Philippines' development initiatives, particularly in agriculture, infrastructure, defense, and security, as well as the Mindanao peace process. The chairman of the Japan-Philippines Parliamentarians Friendship League, or JPPFL, Moriyama Hiroshi, during his meeting with the Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. in Malacañang, said agriculture and digital relation is important. Moriyama also said Japan is pleased to see the Philippines' achievement on defense, particularly the implementation of joint training in the past months. During the meeting, President Marcos said having a strong agricultural sector has been a key priority of his administration to ensure food security and transform the economy. When it comes to infrastructure and agricultural development, Marcos said Japan has been the country's partner for years through the Japan International Cooperation Agency, or JICA, assistance, as well as loans and financial support from the Asian Development Bank, or ADB. Japan has been a key factor in the Philippines' successful infrastructure program, Marcos said, noting that the Philippines and its partners could reap benefits from several arrangements such as public-private partnership, or PPPs, and G2G partnerships, and even joint ventures. With regard to defense and security arrangements with Japan, Marcos said Manila and Tokyo once again have entered therein bilaterally. The JPPFL is a parliamentary friendship association composed of members of the Japanese Diet across party lines. Formed in 1986 to advance legislative initiatives that promote positive engagement between the Philippines and Japan, JPPFL also leads Japan's cultivation of interparliamentary relations with the Philippine Congress. The JPPFL has been instrumental in maintaining and sustaining Japanese development and technical assistance to the Philippines. The Philippines-Japan Parliamentarian Association, or PJPA, was established in 1987 following the JPPFL's visit to the Philippines.
Dateline Malacañang.
News from the Office of the Vice President. The Office of the Philippine Vice President, or OVP, is eyeing to expand its Medical and Burial Assistance, or MAB, program after signing an agreement with the Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation, or PAGCOR, for a 120 million pesos supplemental funding. In a news release, the OVP announced that the grant covers payment of medical bills, dialysis treatment, medicines, laboratory and diagnostic procedures, implants, and other medical and assistive devices, chemotherapy, brachytherapy, radiation, physical, speech, and occupational therapy. Witnessed by Vice President Sara Duterte and PAGCOR officials, the OVP announced that the Memorandum of Agreement, or MOA, was signed by OVP Chief of Staff and Undersecretary Zuleika Lopez and PAGCOR Chairperson and CEO Alejandro Tenco at the OVP Central Office in Mandaluyong City. Last week, the OVP also signed a MOA with the Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office, or PCSO, for a supplemental funding grant amounting to 10 million pesos through the latter's Board Resolution M-0087 dated December 14, 2022. Lopez signed the agreement with PCSO General Manager Melquiades Robles, with the Vice President and PCSO officials as witnesses. The MAB, or MAB program, which is the OVP's banner program for social services, has continuously been providing aid to indigent Filipinos across the country. However, the OVP reminded that the free public assistance application forms, which are available at the central and satellite offices, should solely be used by the clients requesting for such services. The aid can also be accessed through the OVP Central Office, OVP Extension Offices in Lipa, Batangas, and Tondo, Manila, and 10 OVP satellite offices in the cities of Davao, Zamboanga, Cotabato, Surigao, Cebu, Bacolod, Tacloban, Isabela, Dagupan, and Legazpi. Based on the OVP's records from July last year to July 27 this year, the MAB, or MAB program, has already served 82,353 beneficiaries and processed the amount of 764,802,065.60 pesos, which currently has a total of 756 partners from the public and private hospitals and dialysis centers nationwide.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippine Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT, as the lead agency for the Emergency Telecommunications Cluster of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, vowed to execute the marching order of the Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. to deploy satellite internet technology in areas badly hit by Typhoon Egay. In his speech during the distribution of government assistance to residents in Bangued Abra, President Marcos Jr. pledged to provide more pieces of satellite equipment to connect far-flung areas affected by the typhoon to the internet, enabling them to report their situation on the ground and relay their needs to concerned government agencies a day after the president's pledge. The ICT Regional Offices 1 and 2 provided satellite internet technology in the remote areas of Sitio, Bucarot, Adams, Ilocos Norte, and in Barangay Balatubat, Camiguin Island, Calayan, Cagayan. At Barangay Balatubat, the ICT conducted a rapid damage assessment and needs analysis, or RDANA, in the aftermath of Egay. Sitio, Bucarot, a mountainous area inhabited by Isnag tribe, is the most remote portion of Adamstown. Meanwhile, Barangays Balatubat is one of the 3 barangays of Camiguin Island, which is part of the larger Babuyan group of islands situated in northern Philippines. Per the 2020 census, Adams and Balatubat have a population of 2,189 and 1,787 respectively. The DICT also installed very small aperture terminals, or VSATs, in Bangued Abra and Calayan, Cagayan to enhance connectivity and ensure continued emergency communication.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippine Department of Social, Welfare and Development, or DSWD regional directors, or RDs, have been instructed to double-check The number of family food packs or FFPs to make sure all requests by local government units or LGUs hit by Super Typhoon Egay and enhanced southwest monsoon are properly met. DSWD Secretary Gatchalian instructed the DSWD RDs in Ilocos, Cagayan Valley, Central Luzon, and the Cordillera Administrative Region or CAR, the regions hit hardest by the typhoon. Secretary Gatchalian also told the concerned RDs to follow the delivery plan, which they have agreed on with the Disaster Response Management Group or DRMG, led by Undersecretary Dayan Cahipe and Assistant Secretary Marlon Alagao. The RDs have also been instructed to submit in tabulated form the number of requested FFPs per province, city, and municipality, along with the number of released or delivered food packs and the number of FFPs which are still for release. The NROC is the main disaster response hub of the DSWD located in Pasay City, Metro Manila. Gatchalian has earlier ordered the NROC to prepare for the dispatch of at least 289,906 boxes of FFPs in the first 2 weeks of August as augmentation assistance to the LGUs in Ilocos region, Cagayan Valley, Central Luzon, and CAR. A state of calamity has been declared in at least 16 provinces, towns, and cities in Luzon, where Egay left a trail of destruction due to massive flooding in many areas in the 4 regions. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council or NDRIMC reported on Monday that around 2.3 million people or 654,837 families were affected by Egay, an enhanced habagat or southwest monsoon. The numbers of evacuees was estimated at 312,000, with some staying in 737 evacuation centers nationwide, according to the NDRIMC.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippine Department of Migrant Workers or DMW announced that Overseas Employment Certificate or OEC for rehires in all its forms shall now be issued for free. The agency in Memorandum 110 dated July 25, 2023 said a free of-charge issuance of OEC to rehires is based on the implementation of the Department's Circular 02 that renamed OEC to OFW Pass and lifted the fees for its issuance. In a separate Facebook post, the DMW said pilot test runs both for the OFW and the agency's mobile app are ongoing. The DMW said aside from the Philippines, the mobile app pilot test run is also being implemented in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia or KSA, United Arab Emirates or UAE, Singapore or SG, Hong Kong or HK, Malaysia, MY, Qatar, Oman, Taiwan, Japan, and the United Kingdom or UK. However, the DMW also advised those who wish to participate in the pilot test run to have patience and to expect delays in server response time due to the high number of people accessing the digital platforms. It also encouraged OFWs to send their feedback and suggestions during the pilot test run phase. Feedback and suggestions may be sent to ofwpass@dmw.gov.ph, the agency's Facebook page, and FB Messenger, WhatsApp, and Viber call, and SMS to +63 908 326 8344. +63 927 147 8186 and +63 920 517 1059.
Dateline Malacañang.
After being recognized by Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. in his second State of the Nation address for its record high home loans in 2022, Pag-ibig Fund has again set a new record in home loans released for the first half of 2023, the agency's top officials announced Monday. Pag-ibig Fund released 57.07 billion pesos in home loans, from January to June this year, an increase of 5.11 billion pesos or 10% compared to the 51.96 billion pesos released during the same period in 2022. Secretary Jose Rizalino Acuzar, who heads the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, and the 11-member Pag-ibig Fund Board of Trustees said, inspired by President Marcos' recognition of their efforts in his report to the people, they remain committed to his administration's Pambansang Pabahay para sa Pilipino Housing or 4PH program under the Bagong Pilipinas campaign, in line with their united efforts of providing fellow Filipinos access to decent, safe, and affordable homes. Acuzar added that the amount of home loans released by the agency during the period enabled 44,414 members to acquire their own homes. He further noted that of this total number, 5,748 or 13% are Pag-ibig Fund members from the minimum wage and low-income sectors who are now homeowners after securing a total of 2.42 billion pesos in socialized home loans. Pag-ibig Fund Chief Executive Officer Marilyn C. Acosta meanwhile attributes the continued growth in the agency's home loan releases to its sustainable affordability. She further expressed optimism that home loans will maintain its growth in the second half of the year, with Pag-ibig Fund further reducing home loan rates earlier this month.
Dateline Malacañang.
Finally, for Dateline Malacañang, the National Economic and Development Authority or NEDA reaffirmed the Philippines' commitment to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals or SDGs and share the steps that the country has taken to accomplish them despite the challenge posed by a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous or VUCA world. In the International Association of Schools and Institutes of Administration 2023 conference, NEDA Secretary Arsenio Balisacan stated that the VUCA world, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic, exposed numerous inequalities in the Philippine economy and society, as well as weaknesses in the country's systems leading to the challenges in attaining SDGs. Thus, through a whole-of-government and a whole-of-society approach, the NEDA led the formulation of the Philippine Development Plan, or PDP, 2023 to 2028, with careful consideration of the lessons learned from the pandemic, the lessons learned from the implementation of the PDP 2017 to 2022, emerging global and regional trends, the Marcos administration's 8-point economic agenda, and the Ambisyon Natin 2040, the country's long-term vision. Moreover, he highlighted the various initiatives of the Philippines toward achieving the SDGs in a VUCA world. Notably, he discussed how the country actively engages with international associations and practitioners and created the Stakeholders Chamber on the SDGs as part of the country's efforts to collaborate with various sectors of society. Additionally, the government has included programs focused on the SDGs in its expenditure program and has explored different modes of financing interventions. Furthermore, Balisacan highlighted the PDP's focus on social and economic transformation to empower Filipinos, enhance the resilience of the poor and near poor, and reduce inequalities. The country will achieve this transformation by developing and protecting Filipino capabilities and creating high-quality jobs. The NEDA chief also highlighted the creation of a subcommittee on the SDGs under the Development Budget Coordination Committee, which has a clear responsibility for planning, policy, monitoring, and reporting of the different dimensions of sustainable development through the various technical working groups. Balisacan also mentioned the development of the National Determined 2030 targets for the SDGs to create a supporting accountability mechanism and monitor the country's progress towards achieving the SDGs.
Dateline Malacañang.
And that is all for today's Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this has been Bea Gaza.
from the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.